Am I sponsored by Colgan? Does anybody know if we're sponsored by him? Huh?
That your latest NIL deal?
Yeah, Colgan Water. Okay, fire away, guys.
How's the first week of practice going?
Good. As always, kind of coaches talk. We just got into shoulder pads, and the players are attentive. They're excited about being out there, but it's really difficult to tell other being in pads. And so we had a competitive day, which is good. But as you know, we got a long ways to go.
Is this the best year, Mike, ever to have a really super experienced team, because your schedule is, the top half of it is pretty difficult. And so instead of having to find your way for a few weeks, you kind of have an identity already.
Yeah, we have a difficult non-conference schedule, and so experience is going to help us in this area. It allows us to move forward a little quicker than what we've been able to over the last few years, which is necessary because we're going to need to back off a little earlier in order to get ready to play in the first game.
Do you sense that already? Because you have so many guys, like, does this feel different than, August 3rd a year ago? Because
Yes, yeah, we've moved forward and on more of a 6-day install than a 10-day install. Allows us to get into a more of a football mode than a teaching mode middle of next week.
With the depth and the maturity and experience, is it a challenge to try and make sure all the kids or all the players are, looking, hey, I've got a say in this, I've got a role in this?
So the incoming, the portal transfers and the young players are going to have to spend more time on their own in the evening prior to school starting to play catch up. It's going to move really fast. It's just the way it is sometimes. I don't anticipate many of those guys being an impact in the first few games of the season anyway, just because we have so many returning players. So they'll have time to play catch up. But the message that we had given them is that if you want to be in a position to contribute early, you're going to spend a lot of time because you're going to be force-fed a lot of information. It's unusual because we do have so many mature players.
I think Brooks is a fifth-year senior and the seventh most veteran player on the offensive line. What do you do with an offensive line that old and that experienced? Do you treat them different? Do you? I mean, it seems silly. Somebody called them kids already. And, it seems silly to call them kids. They're 23, 24 years old.
Yeah, they're grown men, and so a best-case scenario would be that we could get to the first game with the faith to play 8 or 9 guys in that game. It's the one position that really gets fatigued, and as you know, maybe forever, but I know in my 20 years as a head coach, we hadn't had the ability to rotate many of those guys. And over the last 4 years, the two positions that we've been really beat up at is wide receiver and offensive line. We were very fortunate to win as many games as we have with the situation we had from an injury standpoint at those two positions. Now we've got a number of guys that have played, and we actually could rotate guys and try to keep some of them fresh. And if we do get a guy that gets banged up a little bit and has to miss some time, we don't have to hold our breath every play. So that's kind of what our thought process is at this point.
Along the lines of what you said with those two positions, when you get a Dejon Stribling back, and you know what he's capable of, what kind of bonus or what kind of boost is that for that position?
It's a challenge. You have to be careful about playing man on him. And I mean, quite honestly, you have to be careful about playing man on our slot. So if we can keep the guys healthy that we have on the perimeter, we're going to force people to play an extra guy in the box. You're going to have to stop Ollie running the ball. I don't know if we'll be any good at it or not, but that's what we think we're going to do. So if they can stop it with the correct number of guys in the box, then so be it. But if you're going to put enough guys down in the box to stop the run, you're going to have to play some man coverage on the perimeter. That's a choice you have to make.
How is the health of the team at this point?
How is what?
The health of the team. We just talked about
They're in good shape. Yeah, everybody's in good shape.
Do you have any kind of timetable on AJ Green and when he could be back?
I don't think AJ will be able to help us much this year.
What's the addition of Gavin to this team?
Gavin Freeman, yeah, he's done really well. Players have rallied around him, and he seems to be comfortable here. He's a good addition for us. He's an interesting player. He ran 22 miles an hour in 5 games last year at this level, which is very unusual. He's got a lot of raw ability. Loves to play football. He's a former wrestler. He's over a 300-pound bencher. He vertical jumped 36.5 inches and ran 22 miles an hour in games last year, which means that he plays fast not only in practice but in games. So he's another guy that'll jump in there for us in the slot position.
Was it nice to get a transfer on the other side of the Bedlam rivalry? Losing one before, now gaining.
Yeah, I hadn't even – I never really thought of that. But we had one guy transfer there, I think, and they've had a couple transfer up here. But I can tell you this: it's going to be a sign of the future. At some point, it's going to go on so much nobody's even going to talk about it. Would be my guess.
Something that Rob said to me this summer when I asked him how the summer program was going. Rob Glass said, "The best part of my job now is all these kids hold each other accountable." Mm-hmm. When you've got that established, does that carry over into practices and games and every facet?
Yeah, if your culture doesn't allow your players to hold themselves accountable, it's extremely difficult. This generation of young men doesn't really allow coaches to motivate them. So our job is to put them in a position to be successful, and if they can't drive themselves and motivate themselves and want to win for each other, it'd be really hard for us to want to win for them, because I don't play in the games, neither does anybody else that coaches. So we have to instill that type of character in them over a period of time. Our job is to convince them that they're going to have to work and put forth effort like they never had before in their life, and that's going to be okay, and it'll benefit them on a Saturday in the fall. And they have to hold themselves accountable. We'll be much more successful in that arena than we would if we're trying to convince them to be successful by talking to them.
Mike, we haven't really known what's going to happen in the Big 12 last 3 or 4 years. Now we got 8 schools that weren't in the league 14 months ago. Do you have any clue what's going to happen?
Mm-hmm. As the one thing that's benefiting me in this area is for the last 18, 19 years, we've gone to media days and somebody has said, well, you're picked this or you're picked this or you're picked that, and I've said it doesn't make a difference. We've got to play them all. There's been times we've been picked pretty low and ended up high, and there's been times we've been picked pretty high and ended up high. And just us in particular, the last 3 years, most people have missed where we started and finished. And I don't think there's a fair way to really evaluate that with the parity now because of the transfer portal. You have no idea, because even though media outlets and maybe recruiting services try to grade transfer portals, you don't know how they're going to adjust when they get here. You might have a really highly talented young man and he doesn't settle in very well, he doesn't pick the system up, or he doesn't bond well with the team, and so he doesn't play as well as what people thought. Or you might get one that's we had one from George Fox last year that nobody said was going to be. They just thought he was a guy, and he ended up. I think he's still playing for the Chargers now, isn't he? So you don't really know how a young man's going to integrate himself into the team and how the team's going to accept him. So to answer your question, there's teams that have a number of good players returning and have experience at the quarterback position, and most people are going to say that they should be the league favorites, and I think that's fair. But you really don't know.
What do you notice from your quarterbacks this first week? With Allen, Zane, and Garrett.
What about them?
What have you noticed? Things you've liked, things you haven't liked, and
They're doing good. I mean, Bowman is more comfortable this year because this offensive system over the last 15 years, or maybe even more than that, well, it has been more than that, because my first year here, Fedora was the coordinator, and that was a system that's driven by quarterback play. And quarterbacks that are in this system and understand the concepts of what we try to get accomplished always play better than they do when they just show up, because, one, they don't have experience, and two, they don't really understand what we're trying to do on offense. Bowman now has had a lot of snaps, and that's an advantage for him at this time. It's like Rangel. Rangel's never really been in there long enough for us to evaluate him. There's times he's shown that guy makes plays, and there's times people said, well, he didn't play very good, but he hadn't had a chance to learn our system. And you can go back over the years for all the quarterbacks that we've had here, and once you learn the system, you get a lot better. And I think that benefits him at this time.
We noticed a big jump from Zane from last year. Now, I think earlier in the season we asked you directly about Zane. You said he wasn't ready yet, and he was further down the pecking order. Now he's one of the 4 quarterbacks. Have you noticed a progression from him specifically?
I think he's ready now. He's just not experienced. But he's big, he's strong, he's fast, he's smart, he's tough. His attitude's good, he's humble, he's hungry. He hadn't played, but that's the difference now compared to this time last year.
At the end of last season, go ahead.
Given the new look of the conference, do you see it as a way to, I mean, if you're not already the face of the conference, to sort of establish yourself, your program as that? Because just looking from the outside, you would think, between Oklahoma State and Utah, those are the programs with the most recent success in sort of leading this conference.
Well, I'm not sure exactly what you're asking me.
Is there any value in having this season be an opportunity to kind of be seen as the face of a new look conference?
I think we all want to have success and try to establish ourselves. There's so many teams in this league now, and it's so new that, as you can see, for example, 2 seasons ago, TCU had a season that nobody would have predicted. And then last year they didn't fare as well as they wanted to, and nobody would have predicted that. But TCU, in my opinion, when I look at them, what they have on paper, if they get good quarterback play, they're going to be pretty good again this year. So it's hard to predict how you can establish yourself. The only thing that I would say is this, that from day one, when I was lucky enough to get this job, I said that my goal personally, was to make sure that we put a product on the field that we could fill this stadium every Saturday, and people knew if we played well, we could win the game. We didn't come out of the tunnel, or people come to the tailgating or go to the game and think we didn't have a chance. And that has not always been that way at Oklahoma State football, but it is now. So I'm comfortable with that. Well, whether we're the face of the league or that, I don't know. My goal is to put a product out there that the fans can come and enjoy their Saturday and tailgate, and so, you know what, we might win this game.
You talked at the end of last season and into the spring about not wanting Ollie's load to be as heavy as what it was last year, but you ended up kind of running short on running backs in spring ball. Now you've got that full complement. Do you like what you see there enough to say, yeah, Ollie won't have to carry as much of a load?
We've been in pads one day, basically, so I think we're in a better situation than we were at this time last year, in my opinion. Ollie's going to have to carry the load, but hopefully not quite as much. Okay, there was games last year he carried the ball around 30 times. I would prefer for that not to happen, and I'm hoping that we have a couple of guys that can get in there and steal 10 or 12 carries from him to keep him fresh. My guess is that's going to happen. I'll know a lot more in 2 weeks. But Ollie is bigger and stronger and faster and in better condition now than he was at this time last year. So there'll be times that he will have to carry the load, hopefully just not as much as what we did last year.
But Howland and Sessi,
They're doing good. They haven't been hit enough yet. So I'm not worried about Howland. I think he's been hit throughout his career. He's 242 pounds. So he should be able to handle that side of it. Sessy's at 207 now. He's dropped his 40 time 5/10 since he's been here. He was a baby last year. He's grown up a little bit. He's showing some sign of maturity. He has good vision. So I'm comfortable in that area. And we've got some young kids that have come in that are doing some things that might be able to help us a little bit anyway. Those guys can play 4 games until postseason, then they're active to play the rest of the year. So I guess the fair answer would be we're better off now than we were at this time last year.
If you draw up, though, your ideal workload division or whatever, and the way you play offense, does it look a lot like maybe when you had like Keith Coaston as a third back, or Jeremy Smith stepping in and getting touchdowns with 5 carries?
Yeah, yes. The perfect scenario for us would be all the way to stay healthy all year long and carry the ball 20 times a game. And if that happens, then that means we're successful in offense because we're allowing some other guys to get some carries. I have confidence in the other guys that are going to carry the ball, but I also know that the more times Ollie touches the ball and we can get guys blocked up, it's going to make us a better team. And he also has the ability to run through the extra guy.
Granted, it's early, but overall, when you look at your defense out there, you feel like it's in a better place right now than it was a year ago?
I mean, I hope so. Just from the standpoint, this was an unusual defense last year. There were times that they won games for us. And then there were times that we gave up too many yards, we dropped coverage, and in the first 3 games we didn't tackle very well. So some of the more important games early in the season last year, the games that we won that people didn't think we could win, our defense really kept us in those games and then finished them off for us. And then there was times we wish that we would have played better because of some mistakes. The good news is we have identified what the issues were, and now the coaches have to work to fix those issues and find a plan to get the players to understand why that happened and how we can get better. And it's honestly not real complicated. You tackle better, you don't drop coverage, and you keep everything in front of you. It forces the offense to run 9, 10, 11 play drives, and then in most cases offense will mess it up.
What have you seen from Kendall Daniels so far this fall, switching to?
He's doing good. We're moving Kendall around. He's playing up some, he's playing back some, but again, he's only been in pads once. Now Kendall's 233 pounds. He's a good-looking guy, standing in there no matter where he's at. He learned a lot of things last year, and so he's one of the players that I'm excited about watching and seeing where he's at. There's been talk about how physical he would be if we want to play him down some more than we did last year. He showed signs in the spring of that being okay. Spring's a lot different than it is in the season. 2 months from now, when they've been beat up on and you're in games and continue to get beat up on, that'll be the real indicator if it'll work.
If you had like a Rod Glass Hall of Fame, because I remember Kendall that day, he was like a basketball guy wearing pads, right? So he was actually a basketball
He was a good
guy.
basketball guy.
Right. So, but would he be one of the all-timers with regard to development?
He's really been developed, but you guys know how I feel about Coach Glass. It's amazing what he's done with everybody in this program. Kawicki came in as a undersized, really not very highly recruited lineman because he wasn't big enough nor strong enough. And on his lifts the other day, he hit 1,285 pounds, which is in the top 3%. And he was a guy that came out of high school that people really weren't fired up about because they said he wasn't strong enough. So Coach Glass's Hall of Fame is a big one. There's a lot of them, but Kendall certainly falls in that category.
Going back to the defense, what has someone like Colin Oliver kind of meant to your program over the last few years? I think he's gone through 3 defensive coordinators, and he's always out there and productive, kind of no matter what.
Colin is a pure Cowboy. He loves Oklahoma State. He's been tremendous for us. By the time he's finished, he'll have more than one degree. He does well in school. He's got tremendous social skills. He's a great ambassador for the university. We have our extreme camp going on right now. We've got about 120 people that love Oklahoma State football and love Oklahoma State University that spend 3 days with us during this time. And a number of them, have said to me over the last couple years, and particularly this year, if that guy ever's done playing football, I'll hire him. That's what he's all about. And he's put himself in a tremendous position for his future. And he's been a really, really good football player for us. You can count on him. You can trust him. Things get going tough. He won't flinch. He can lead the locker room when coaches can't. Those guys are valuable.
What's Sean Snyder been like the past few weeks since he still hired him?
He's been good. Have you guys, do we have any special teams? Did y'all request any of our special teams guys? Anybody? I would ask them, because I'll be real honest with you, I haven't asked them yet. I haven't got that far.
Why was it important to get a special teams coach this year?
So they passed the rule with unlimited coaching staffs in the other 4 conferences. It's always been unlimited in one. And so I thought, why would you want to have if you're a young man who punts and kicks and you're being recruited and somebody thinks you're a good player, why would you want to come to Oklahoma State if you don't have a guy that can coach you? I wouldn't want to come here, because I would say you have the ability to hire a real kicking and punting coach, and you don't have anybody to coach me. Now, we've had great special teams guys here. They orchestrate the 4 units, but they don't do the integral parts of kicking and punting. It's like your buddy down the street says he can help you with your golf swing, and he really doesn't know what he's doing, and he tells you the basic stuff, and you go play, and you're still no good. This guy can help the punters and kickers with the technical and integral part of the kicking and punting game, and that would be a great question for the guys that we have here. I don't know if y'all requested Logan or Wes or any of them. I would ask those guys. I have not asked them yet. Now, I would say the meetings that I have been in with him have been very impressive. Obviously, I never had the or never coached with his father. But when I listen to him talk and coach, it sounds just like his dad.
What's y'all's approach been to that rule of, you can have as many guys as you want on the sideline, as many guys in the boxes? Like, have y'all kind of had who's going to be in the box, who's going to be on the sideline during games? Or is it too early?
What's interesting is essentially there's no rules now. And so there's a lot of discussion. Anytime it's funny in life when you see things and all of a sudden people say that now you can do whatever you want and there's no rules, everybody starts dogpiling in all the different things that you want to do. So I think we have to be a little careful to just all of a sudden say that we want to hire 28 new coaches to coach football. Specifically, to be quite honest with you, at Oklahoma State, we've been pretty good at what we're doing, so I'm not sure we need to change a lot of things. But I'll give you an example with Sean. I thought it was important to bring a guy in that could actually coach that side and that part of the game. We've joked about the headsets now, because you can have anybody. Like Danielle, my assistant, works in my office. She can have a headset on if she wants to. She can coach if she wants to. Anybody can. And that's what's going to be interesting moving forward is how are some of these other coaches, I'm going to watch and see how some of these other coaches handle these new rules. We have a good idea what we're going to do, which is mean we're not going to change very much.
Along those same lines, I'm interested in your thoughts on that House versus NCAA stuff with the scholarships, being bumped up and the roster limits being brought down now. How do you interpret that, and what's kind of the thought process with all that stuff going on?
Until she signs off on all this, I'm not going to concern myself with it. The only thing I'll say is that my guess is that she'll sign off on something and give us some sort of guidelines within the next 2 months, because right now we don't have any guidelines. So everybody's just guessing at what's going to happen. Everybody's just guessing at how we're going to do this. And so don't kid me, we're guessing too. Okay? But Now we've started football, and I shared with the staff and Kenyatta and the business department and our football team that the portal is closed right now and all NIL deals are over with. She hasn't signed off on any of this yet, and so I would like to just do football from this point moving forward. If something changes, then we'll adjust on the run. But what I have asked our guys to do and the people involved in this is to not get too far out front until we know for sure what she's going to sign off on.
Has it gotten harder and harder to do that, to not concern yourself with all that stuff, with all the changes been going on?
To not what?
To not, I guess, think too far ahead with that stuff and
Well,
focus more on just...
when we started last week, that's the thing that I asked the staff and the players to do. But up until then, yes, because we're all running around trying to figure out what to do. How many coaches you're going to hire? Who's in the press box? How are you going to get enough money to finance yourself through NIL? What kind of contracts you're going to have? Are they going to be employees? Are they not going to be employees? I mean, we all think we know what's going to happen, but we don't know. The good news is over the next 5 months, 5.5 months, that we can just play football. And so that's what I have asked the staff to do and the players to do, is to get out of the realm of all this stuff that's gone on and just play football through January. And then after that, we can get back into it.
Last one, then we'll move on to the players.
Coach, let me ask you this. Obviously, along that topic, you coach on the field so much less probably now than you had to 20 years ago because so many things have changed. NIL, portal, business, general managers, scholarship limitations, all of that. How do you keep the game fun for you and keep yourself from getting burned out and going, this is not what I signed up for 25 years ago, I'm done? How do you maintain that?
So it's been intriguing for me, but it also has been somewhat annoying for me because I catch myself at practice taking notes and doing everything, and then I catch myself thinking of just the question he asked. If this happens, how are we going to handle it? So I can't keep my brain in one place. And I just went up in the box today for the first time. I've been on the field for every other practice. And it's interesting you ask that question because I have young people like your son that I want to look. I want to watch them, and I want to see the guys that are new in the program. And so I go looking for them, and then I go to watch something that I have that I feel like I need to watch. It may be offense or defense. And then I was standing down here listening to, not trying to, but was overheard Coach Dunn and them calling offensive plays and stuff. And I thought, there's no way I could do that now. If I wanted to say, hey, I want to call plays, Dunn stinks calling plays, I'm going to take it over. I know what we're doing, but I couldn't do it now because I can't keep my mind focused on what's going on because there's so many other moving parts. And that's where the staffs are going to expand. Our recruiting staff, our evaluation staff, our business, Kenyatta and the business, that's where staffs are going to expand because there's not enough people and there's not enough manpower currently to deal with all this. And the reason that I asked the staff and the players and everybody to put all this aside and focus on just football is because I haven't been able to do that. Over the last 5 months, I've been in more meetings that you had to add and subtract than I've been in my life, trying to figure out the money situation. And I am glad I did that because I need to know what's going on, whether I like it or not. And right now, it's not overwhelming to me. It's intriguing to me, so I'm enjoying this side of it, but I'm getting a lot of help. I'm very fortunate that Kenyatta's on board, and you guys know Danielle that works in my office. She's really involved in the business side of this, and they're very intelligent, way smarter than me. And so they're helping me get through this until we can hire a front office and then just tell them to take the whole thing over.
Thanks, guys.
So,
Appreciate it.
good.
Question again.